ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sean Sims. I'm one of the co-hosts of Moment of Men. I believe that's what we're calling our new podcast. And that came up with my brother here, Charles. You want to go by Charles or Chuck? Where are we going?
It don't matter. Call me whatever fits you or suits you.
Oh, really? All right, cool. So we're this podcast. I'm going to turn it over to Chuck and he's going to explain why we're here tonight talking to you folks. And I'm going to ask Charles to explain what the Moment of Men is before we get started.
So the Moment of Men, I think we were talking, Sean and I were talking, and one of the biggest things that came out when I was having a conversation is that I just feel as though it's so important that we allow femininity and masculinity to reside in the same place. Because for many years, the balance rose is what kept marriages. But I just think now it's like one seems to be void of the other. So I said, I feared even having this conversation or dialogue because I felt like what was going to happen is it was going to be seen as something to erase femininity. And that's not what we are. So the acronym MOM, celebrating mothers, and women, and also men having their moments. So that's why I thought that we should go with the Moment of Men so that we wouldn't put ourselves in a space where we were isolating anyone, not on purpose, because you can't control how people receive information, good or bad. So there.
Okay. All right, good. So just to introduce myself, again, my name is Sean Sims. I am the owner of a photography and videography company called True Vine Photography. And my wife and I have been married for 18 years now. We've been together for almost 21. We have 4 children, 27, 18, 16, and 13, 3 girls and 1 boy. My boy is this 16-year-old. My oldest daughter, she's grown up. She graduated from college. We actually have a 7-year-old granddaughter who's at my house right now. We love her. She's so adorable. She's great. And my 18-year-old daughter is about to go off to Berklee College of Music. And so my 16-year-old is going to the 11th grade and my 13-year-old is going into the 8th grade. So that's where I come from. Again, we're going to be talking a lot about probably relationships in this podcast. So I am experienced in it. My wife is a psychologist. She's a doctor. She owns her own practice. And so we've been through many, many issues and conflicts, and we've come to resolve a lot of those things. So I mentor a lot of men as well. I'm a Christian. We both go to the same church currently, and we're going to come to you primarily from a biblical standpoint and a lot of our opinions and the subjects we're going to be talking about moving forward. So you want to introduce yourself?
Well, I'm Charles. And just to clarify, we both believe in the Lord and have strong convictions in our faith, but He will be the one directing us all in our faith. Like I said, Sean is much more active and much more leader, and I am sort of kind of hitching my chain to his wagon and walking this walk, because for me, the difficult part is in church is just meeting brothers that I mesh with and that have real life experience, because I come from so much. I'm not going to do all of that, but you'll get to know as we go forward, right? So I am Charles. I am a nurse with my master's in administration, currently work as a case manager. I also have a small business. I also do a lot of mentoring for young Black males. My motto is live, love, laugh. So I have always tried to be positive, but at the same time, I do have a very real perspective about things in life. So it's not that I am unaware of the environment or the climate that happens. I choose not to let it affect how I live, how I treat my children, and how I interact with others. I am a widow, single father who's just trying to find his way and trying to find a balance to try to, provide a good and healthy life for my children. They are my priority. I like to believe I live a fairly good life. I am happy with where I am in life, and I have no problem celebrating those around me, friends or whatever. I just feel as though as long as you are where you're at, then you're where you're meant to be. So with that being said, that is me. We both like to stay in shape. Sean can ride a bike further than I can ride a motorcycle. But that's me.
All right. So let's talk about for a minute this Moment of Men. I know you wanted to introduce the first podcast as femininity versus masculinity conversation, or
Not versus.
Okay, not versus. Yeah, or what?
I want to say femininity. I just wanted to make sure that we provide a space where both can exist. I feel like the current topics on social media are so toxic that the moment you disagree with one, it makes you far left on the others. Like, I can as very much agree with a lot of feminists who want to explore certain topics, but I just feel like we're in a space where if I don't understand something, I'm almost afraid to have a conversation to say, well, I don't understand that. Then I'm automatically rendered as ignorant or disconcerting or I'm insensitive. So I just was hoping that we would talk about like how important it is for those spaces to exist together, because one does not void the other.
Okay. Well, I was thinking when you sent me the topic of the conversation for today is like how femininity is overtaking masculinity. And I know scripturally the Bible talks about in Genesis chapter 3 about after the fall, how women are going to want to rule over their husbands, but that men will rule over them. And so I think that dynamic is coming to a forefront, especially now with the recent overturning in the Supreme Court of Roe versus Wade. I know women are feeling attacked right now, and it's pushing their agenda out to the forefront as far as abortion rights and their rights to choose and their rights to their uterus and their bodies. I think a lot of conversations today are not being had because I don't think people can really talk anymore to one another civilly. I think that a lot of people are very opinionated and they feel like their opinion is the right opinion, regardless of it's factual or not. We see that a lot in the debate versus the Black Lives Movement, right? BLM, the organization versus the movement. And so you got a lot of stuff going on right now. Also, just our children and education and CRT.
Okay,
critical race.
Right.
And so my issue, the reason why we were talking and I wanted to do this with you is because I feel like men have been really underscored in a lot of areas where masculinity has been very under femininity. I think a lot of women's issues are coming. I see it in our church as well. I've seen a lot of churches are focused more on women's issues than they are men. And where God calls us to be the leaders of our home, men are not being led, number one, by other godly or mentorship of men and men. So they don't know what to do in their homes, but also that men are just taking a back seat to a lot of issues that are going on in their homes, in their communities, and in politics. I think that Republicans Party, and not to get into a political debate, but I think you see now, like most of the women are standing up against our President Trump. So that's what I thought, that's what I think about the moment of men. Like, this is our moment. This is our moment to step up, to be brave, to be courageous, and step into our marriages and into our families and be the leader that God calls us.
And you are right. But I want to say something that starts. The Bible says, by their fruits you shall know them, right? Now, you and I are very different personalities. You're outgoing, I'm outgoing. I just seem to be a little more grand with my personality. I seem to draw in everybody, right? But my motto is kind of like, my home is your home if I've invited, right? But I remember watching you and, watching you live that life and still being very faithful, still being very dedicated to home and still being cool, but being a man of Christ. And I remember that was like very weird to me because I was like, yo, like, what's the deal? But there is no deal. You're just who you are. So as I started to get to know you, they say iron sharpens iron.
Right.
So it forces you to start looking at yourself. And for me, I started looking at myself. Like I realized, like once I started to get to know myself, like I realized I don't let a lot of people in. And I used to think because I don't like people, and it's not that I don't like people, I just don't trust people with my heart. Because I give so much. If I love you, I give so much that it blinds me to your faults. And I just keep giving, and it's kind of like the pig being led into slaughter. And I just, I just keep feeding somebody. And then it's like, next thing I know, I'm the meal. My feelings are all getting chopped apart. So my point is that in that space, right, you're saying about women having to step up in the churches and having to step up and lead. And I just think there's two parts to that. One, I think that because a lot of men have failed women in those spaces where they were supposed to protect them. Secondly, I think the thing is I realize as a Christian man that my opinions or my beliefs don't trump what that woman feels or how she goes through. We all talk about how we all have that individual relationship with Christ, but we tell someone how we think they should live both in their personal Christian and their professional life. So I say, I just think that we have to tote that line as well. But at the same time, how do you tell a woman who has not had to surrender and has been taking charge to now surrender? And then now, how does that man exist in that space where he feels like that he's in a space with another man rather than with a woman? So what that means is that I have to now come on and argue with you my value, right? And some would say, well, if a man, if he's putting it down, he's doing all this and you shouldn't have to worry about that and this and the other. Well, here's the thing. No matter you putting it down or taking it out, after a while, it is the basic cultural and religious principles that keep that woman that she knows her place. Like, so that's what I was saying. You're not the threat of my masculinity is going to make you do this or make you feel a certain. No, I'm here. My job is to protect you, to love you. And then I have to also be vulnerable. And that's very difficult for a man to be in them spaces because it's the thing is you put dinner, I make this, I give you this, I do this. And at one point, we're so busy giving that we're not receiving anything. So then, a lot of men use the excuse that that they sort things elsewhere. I don't really subscribe to that, but I just feel like we have to find a balance. You need the tenderness in her and she needs the protection in you. But you have to find, how do I give that? And I will say this. Being in a space with someone who doesn't have a cultural or religious balance with Christ, you can give her your vulnerability, and to her, it's of no value. It's like pouring water into an open hand. It doesn't go anywhere. So the thing is that you can pour all you want, but it's nothing being held.
It's interesting as far as I know people want to be like, ooh, woman in her place. Oh my God. I went to sleep for everything down there. When you said it, I was like, oh, that's the first. Oh my God. Women in her place.
Men in her place too. Is Bible positions both of us to one to each other. We have to surrender one to another. I have to know my space. I don't get to erase you because I am the man of the house. As sure as the head cannot move without the body cannot function without a head. So that is what I meant. Let me clear that.
So biblically, God calls the man to leave out, right?
Right.
So what that means is that when he dies, or when we are back, that's what we're going to do. He goes to heaven. Man is going to have, your husband is going to have to answer God's questions about why you didn't do this, why you didn't do that, where were you here, why were you not involved in that? The men are going to have to answer that. That's not what the women are going to have to answer to. And so I think that as God calls us to lead, He puts us in a position of a place where we are supposed to and provide, right? And it's not just monetarily. It's providing love and providing tenderness and care for our women. And I think the environment, our climate, our culture today, that's not happening. I can only speak for African American men, but I do mentor to other culture men. But as a man, we haven't been brought up, socialized that way to be vulnerable, like you suggested. Man, it is very difficult for us because if we're vulnerable, then that means that we're weak, right? Because a lot of times, if we are vulnerable with our spouse or with our significant other, they can potentially have some ammunition to use against us. And in a lot of cases, it happens, right? Our wives will use the things that we told them against us and vice versa. If you're on the other side of that, I totally get it. I understand. But for men, if we become vulnerable in an instant and then our vulnerability is used against us, we will never, ever, ever, ever be vulnerable with that individual, spouse, wife, significant other, again. Because what you're doing is teaching us how to treat you and how to come to you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not a safe person, then we won't come to you.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody will come to a safe person, but specifically for men to be open and to be vulnerable with their spouses. And if their spouse rejects them, their wife rejects them, that's a huge, huge deal for men.
Mm-hmm.
So ladies, if your husband has been vulnerable with you and you have rejected or used his vulnerability, used his words against him, then there's a lot of healing that needs to take place. And there's a lot of really repentance and asking for forgiveness from your spouse for that. And hopefully he will over time trust you. And, and again, it goes both ways, but for men, it's a much bigger deal because we're not socialized to be vulnerable. We're socialized to be strong and powerful, impactful, and to be smart and intelligent and, to lead. But we're not told ever to be vulnerable. Don't ever cry. Like, you can't cry. What do you know? It's not what men do. You cannot cry.
Right.
And I was brought up that way. I don't know about you. I was socialized that way.
Right. I was. And I love the terminology that my mom used, or my parents used. Stop all that crying before I give you something to cry about.
Right.
And here's the funny thing. Women will raise a young boy to be the men that they want, right? So the women in my family were the matriarchs. So I would get popped and said, men don't cry. Men don't cry over it. Boy, let it go. You're not supposed to. So I stood up and I didn't. So when I was in a relationship and a safe space for me, I learned what I thought was a good balance. I'm not a very vulnerable person. It takes a lot for me to give. But when I'm in a space and when I do give and my feelings are weaponized, I don't. I get silent. See, my thing is that I'm in a relationship with you, and anybody who's in a relationship with you can say, I've not been perfect, but the one thing they'll tell you is, whatever I say to that man, and whatever I tell him, and if I value you, it stays with me because I will use what I know about you to love you harder. I will never use what I know about a woman to tear her down because that, to me, is the weakest sign of a man, to use what I know to tear you down. So what I know, I use to uplift you. But me, if I don't have that same, considering that what I give, it tears me. So I don't know how to operate in that space, so to speak. Like, I don't know how to say, like, and I've said it, like, look, like, yo, you're killing me here. Like, I don't know what to do here. Like, what? Help me. And nothing. So in turn, I just got silent because I don't know now what to say. I don't know how to get what I need from you because I feel devalued. And then women might say, well, you don't talk to me. You don't. How am I supposed to speak? Like, I don't know what to say when I'm sitting here suffering. And for men and for anyone who's suffering, I'll take that anyone. I'm not discounting people. But for men, it is very hard when you're in that space because, so oftentimes you give till you're at a breaking point. And then it's kind of like with men, it's like, oh, come on, get yourself together. I was thinking of the Usher video. You don't have to call. It's okay, girl. And in that video, Puffy comes to the door. He's like, yo, like, shake that off, man. We all been there. And he plays the remnants of Let It Burn and all this. And he plays all this. And then they go out to a party and they shake it off and he starts dancing. Big hit, right? And you hear a lot of guys in the club, yeah, man, I've been hurt. Like they shake it off like it's nothing. But then you carry that into another relationship because you've never processed that.
Right.
But, who teaches us that it's okay? And the thing is that if we don't do something about these leaders in our communities and our churches, right? What you're going to have is you're going to have an imbalance. And now you're going to have women trying to get people to come to the church. So they really see no value in the men because they're absent, especially in our community. You know what I mean? Like I always say, it's not a problem that we don't like each other. It's a problem that we just kind of miss each other. We just don't know how to connect. And the thing is that, as time changes, we have to learn what's important. Like I have to learn, like how I function in the world is not how I function at home. Because I know what's needed of me at home is very different from what I am at work. At work, I'm expected to smile, give so much of myself, and don't let stuff bother me, right? But at home is the space where I could say, man, tough week. Like last week, I can't really do that. So it's just like, I just feel like some men, some friends of mine always feel it's so sense like they have nowhere to go. And I know like a couple of guys I work with, they just go to the bar on a couple of days a week. To me, that would sadden me if I had to go to a bar to talk to a stranger or bartender rather than go home where I pay mortgage, bills, and do everything, and I don't have a space where I can let all that out. I just think that's weird.
Yeah. I was struggling for a long time in my marriage, and I totally understand that feeling of suffering, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you don't think that your spouse is listening or cares to do the things that you're asking them to do. And you point out something that men bring along, but women also have a ton of dissatisfaction in past relationships, and they bring this into another relationship, especially if like you said, if they don't process that, then they are mistrustful in their next relationship. They see the man getting wrong and it's really toxic, to say the least, as far as when that occurs. And there has been a lot of issues that my wife and I had to deal with, not only just from my expectations, but just what she expected or what she's seen from her past relationships. I tell my young guys this all the time. If you can find a person, a female, that has had two parents and a loving home, you found a gem. Because if a lot of times when women or men don't see that healthy relationship modeled or mirrored, they have no idea how to mimic that and how to provide that for their spouse or their children. I was one of them. My parents were divorced when I was like 6 or 7. I don't remember. My dad was a drug dealer, then became a drug addict, and he used to steal my money. And so I come from that environment. My mother had a nervous breakdown. And so like my parents, I always thought my parents were the best example of how not to be, right? They show me how not to be. I love them to death. They're both gone now. They're both looking down on me from heaven. And my father eventually overcame his addiction and was a great man. We spent a lot of time together in my later years of my adult life. I love them to death. We get into a ton of Sixers games. But then my mom, she started her own business, her own company, took care of us the best way she could. My sisters and I. But yeah, it was a huge, huge example of what I never wanted my family, what I eventually wanted. Yes, I wanted to be married. I wanted to have kids, and I wanted to be a much better dad. So,
Right.
and the Bible talks about, and I was listening to a sermon by Tony Evans a couple of weeks ago, and it was talking about just that generational curse. And so I have to stop that. So my generational curse hopefully ends with me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my son was listening to the same sermon. He was in the car with me, and I said, Shorty, and I explained to him everything I just told you guys about my upbringing and how I was brought up. I am stopping that generational curse with me. And my son has been nothing but a godsend to me. I love him. All my children are. I mean, my children are so talented. And they came up most of them, my stepdaughter didn't. But most of my children came up in a 2-parent household, loving home, supportive, and they have good examples of what a relationship will look like. Now, me and my wife are not perfect. We have argued in front of them countless times, but we also have devotions. Like we have devotions with our family, and my wife is a big proponent of that. But we talk to them about the Bible. We talk to them about love and kindness and sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
And, we teach them about the Lord. And their environment is one that I would have loved to have growing up as a child. And I'm able to provide that. And I'm proud to do that for them. And it makes me continue to just, in the hard times in our marriage, just continue to move forward and try to get through those wintry seasons in my marriage.
Yeah, but I think the thing is, I just want to give you, I wish this camera had a whole round of applause because we don't celebrate that enough. I always say, you can have a relationship, but who do you want to do life with? Doing life is a very real task. And I'm careful of the word. I've been in a relationship, I'm like, oh, we're in a relationship. But if I said, I'm going to do life, it means I'm willing to give you everything, right? But I've had to process, because I've come from a lot of dysfunction. But what I've learned, the process that, and to do just the same as you, like, this is the example of what I don't want my children to see. My daughter had said something, and she swift with her tongue, but as girls are. So, some, before I get the criticism, I don't want that. But, you know, so, and she, very tough to his pushes, but I think she genetically inherited it from her mother. Her mother was like, very witty and just like, and I was like, okay. I was just like, often have to tell her, like, you're 12. Like, please go away from me, right? So when I sent her away and she come back and she was like, oh, you upset? And I said, I'm not ready to talk. Come back. Like, I love you. And we'll talk. And that's the one thing I was telling my kids. I love them all the time, but I wasn't told that. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that. I knew my mom loved me, you know, by the things she did. But that reaffirmation, like that kind of affirmation of that was very important. Right. And I thought, like, honestly, like, after I got disciplined, is what my mom would tell me that. And I thought, like, you know, I was just like, well, that's all beat you. And I said, oh, but I love you. Right. Yeah, this is going to hurt me, and way more is going to hurt you. Right. Well, these bumps over here, not on your skin, they on mine. And I said to her, and she said, well, I said, you know what? I said, I'm a very different parent. And she was like, if grandma would, I said, no, because my mother's very soft now. She's like, oh, honey, very different. Very different. Yeah. So I said, but when I was younger and she was in her prime, I said, it was very different. She said, what do you mean? I started unplugging all of this stuff from the extension cord. And I said, this is what was the lesson. And she said, oh, God. So she went upstairs. I smiled because I was like, that wasn't presented as a threat to her. It was just like, I've come so far. Like, I talked to you guys, like, time out, I tried to utilize those tools. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, when it comes time to really have them tough disciplinary decisions, I will. But that's not my first thing. And I don't go to any belt I don't believe in it. I don't criticize people who do. But I'm just saying, like, I want to talk to you because ultimately my thing is I tell my children is, I want you to come back home. I want you to always look at this as a safe place. And I think my nephew said to me one time to let me know I'm doing the right thing. And he gets frustrated. He's in the Navy. And I try to tell him, like, hey, look, he's talking about future building. So we always have to talk about what the next generation look like and our kids, his kids. And he says to me one time, he said, oh, I just want to thank you for in the midst of everything that's been happening in my life, you've always been a safe space. Yeah. And at that moment, I had to walk away because I teared. Because I was like, I am giving him what I never had. And I was like, wow, Chuck, you're really doing it. Like, I had to pat myself on the back because I never had that. I never had nowhere to go. And I told him, I said, I later had to tell him, I was very proud of that. And he just looked like, well, you know, you just are. You know what I mean? So, and a lot of times we talk and we're able to process stuff and I break stuff down with him. But I try to just be there for them because I love family. That's the most important thing for me. I mean, I don't need elaborate vacations and things. Man, if me and my family are just out on the deck, random barbecue, a couple of hot dogs and burgers, and just some sister vibes and talking, I'm good. And a lot of times we just wind up at the night with like the fire pit, the outdoor lanterns, and just like s'mores and barbecue. And it's just like nothing to it. We're just out there till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. And I just think those things are important to me. And I just think people are so busy trying to fill themselves with things that they don't focus on the one thing that's right in front of you is the most important, you know? Yeah.
And so I think what we're trying to say on the topic of men is just like a mentorship. Like, because we're not socialized, if we weren't socialized to be vulnerable or to be loving men. I tell my guys this at church, I work in the church, youth leaders at church, is that, you know, men need to find other ways to define how they feel other than anger or happiness, right? I think our culture tells us men are either happy or they're angry. But no, underneath that anger could be sadness, could be disappointment, it could be frustration, hurt. There's a lot of hurt there for men. Going back to being vulnerable with our spouses is that, again, if you're not safe, if their wives are not safe, then they don't know how to process that, right? And then they suffer. Because if I'm telling my wife that what you did hurt me, and they say, oh, well, what kind of man are you? You get hurt, or how can I hurt you? You're a guy, or not apologize, right? Not even apologize and say, I'm sorry, that hurt you.
Right.
Then that leads us into a lot of different directions. And temptation is one of them. And so when we see men, like you said earlier, just going towards other individuals, be it having an affair, going toward another woman, we want these things from our spouse.
Mm-hmm.
But if our spouse is not emotionally there to give them to us, and someone finds us, or someone that we're close to or that we can relate to, another woman, is that individual and can give that to us, then that's a huge distraction. I would say distraction. Because if our spouses, our wives are not loving and are not kind and are not safe, and this other woman is, then that can go down a very difficult and tumultuous road that a lot of times men are to blame for, because a lot of times we get the stigma that we sought that out. No, we sought that out from our spouses. We told our spouses and talked to them about our issue. They weren't safe. And that other person, they come along and we feel vulnerable to talk to them about what's going on between our spouse or what's going on with us. And they can provide some comfort, some kind words, some confidence in us, especially if we're not feeling confident at home. Then there's a whole issue where I think a lot of men have fallen into, and not by any fault of their own, but just it goes in that direction where we're not feeling that safeness and that unity and that trust and that vulnerability from our spouses.
I hear you, right? But I learned a long time ago. I had a great mentor that when I was married, that he took me under and just kind of showed me and just taught me the power of your word, right? So by that, what I say is any woman that I'm with, from then on, I made a promise. You'll know me inside and out, right? And I say this, and any woman that is in a relationship, I would say, here's what I am. Here's what I like. Here's what I need. I want these things from you. I'm only asking from you. I make it clear. If I can get these things from you, I'll give you whatever you need. But here's what I need. I need you to check on me to make sure I'm okay. So I kind of learn, and maybe it's ineffective. They say nobody wants to hear what you want, and that's okay too. But I've also learned that being with the wrong person or giving the wrong person the right thing is the worst thing to do. Because the thing is, sometimes you give somebody something. I always say this, if you walk to a homeless shelter and you got steak, potatoes, and eggs, random, and they'll tell you that every Tuesday you come, a chef comes and we want to give you this every Tuesday. It takes a while for a person to believe that. This chef should operate here, but is operating here and wants you to have this, right? You can't appreciate it because you're not in those spaces where that's valued. So you're getting something at a place where you're not ready to appreciate it.
Right.
So I just think that it's a matter of sometimes of taking stuff for granted. I work a lot of surgeons and doctors and administrators that say, I want man this and I want that. And the first question I ask is, what are you going to do for all of that? And they're not used to answering that question.
What are they going to do for all of what?
For all of what they're asking for. I want a man that works. I want a man that's in jail for something. I don't have to write. I'm sorry, but you hear, that's what they say. I don't want to do this. What are you going to do?
You mean the demands of the female on the man?
Right, no, yes. Her demands. I hear a lot of females what they're going to do, and I always say, well, what are you going to do for all of it?
Right.
What am I got to do for it? I'm a woman. And I say, my defense is, he's a man. So Like, it's
I don't know how to eat.
right.
He's just right, apply everything.
Right.
And I don't know how to do anything.
Right.
Because he's going to take care of me. Right. Or do anything.
Right.
I think you said to me the other day, like, what are you going to contribute?
Right.
I don't have to contribute anything.
Right.
He's the man.
Right.
No, it doesn't work that way.
No.
It doesn't. And in a loving relationship, it will never work that way.
No.
Yeah.
No. It's like if I'm constantly giving, and all you're doing is taking, eventually you're going to drain me.
Yeah.
I saw a video the other day and it talks about when an empath does, it gives his feelings and he's like, oh, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And then to a point where he's given and then he walks away drained, like he's dark.
Yeah.
And he doesn't get, and then a random puppy comes along and Drain takes all of his sadness from him.
Right.
But that's what it feels like sometimes.
Well, that's a point. That's the whole point I was getting to. If you don't feel safe
Right.
in an environment that you're being vulnerable, you're taking care of your spouse or your wife.
Right.
And you're drained. And then that puppy may look like a nice looking woman, right? That puppy could be a nice looking, taking all that from him. Right. And it's not to say that he's not wrong.
Right.
It's definitely that right. He's wrong. Like the spouse or the man is wrong for accepting whatever she's willing to, that other woman is willing to give.
Right.
But it makes it easier. Like the devil is real. Temptation is real. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Those women out there that are willing to take on your husband, they're out there. And so you have to protect your marriage by creating a safe space for your husband, I think.
Yeah, but see, I think the thing is that we have a very real subject, and this is why I bother a lot of women. Not every woman was meant to be a wife. There's a reason why some women have an O after their name and some women have an I. Wi-Fi and women don't match. And a wife and a woman is two different things.
Right.
Right? You can have a good woman who's just not a wife. He who found her for a wife found her for a good thing.
A good thing, right.
And not every woman is a good thing. Not every man is a good thing either. Believe me, I know that. I get it. I get it. Before we get into this conversation, I get it. My topic is to stay positive and to get us to a place where we can exist together. My point is that I was trying to make is that when I'm in a relationship, I tell the woman I want to check in on, make sure I'm good. And here's the thing, if you feel something about me, talk to me, like let me know. I will tell you I'm missing this. You used to do this for me. I'll ask, what can I do to get these things back? I'll ask.
Wow.
Because I know for a fact that we are all men, you have that carnal like desire. So I always say, like, I tell a woman, like, the worst thing you can do is only be my lover and only be my best friend. I need both of them.
Right.
And I'll in turn give you that. And I'll never let women in that space, but you got to help me with that. Like I need you. And it's not always they hear you. And sometimes women don't know really how to be in those spaces.
Yeah.
Some women just feel like, you should be okay. Just be a good boy. Be over there. Okay, I am a good boy, right? And I'll sit down in a chair, right? You can rub my head and I'll kind of pant easy, right?
Yeah.
But if I'm telling you I need to park, like take me outside, let him walk me through these emotions that I'm feeling.
Right.
Like let me pour into you what I'm feeling and you let's pour into each other.
I your heart to them.
Yeah. I said this and I put this on a Facebook post. I said, be careful of the people that you pour into. Make sure that they're pouring into you, not POOR around you.
Right. Because
the idea the same word, two different spelling. So someone can be draining you and it feels like they're pouring into you and they're telling, or like you can tell your homie, like, man, I wouldn't do that for, man, you're a wife, this, that, and the other. Always have something there that they're draining. They're not givers. They're just pulling. They're pulling. But a lot of times those people, and I've said this, and I know women that are guilty of this. I have very little men. Not to say that men aren't guilty of this. I don't want to be known.
We gotta stop at okay.
Well, I'm just saying I gotta be careful because I don't want you lose people when you get when they get hung up on one word.
So just know that this can go either way.
Right. So right.
So we're not bashing women. We're just trying to communicate to you guys that men have feelings too. Right. We have needs and we have wants and we have desires. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think the thing is that I want a woman that I can give everything to at home. because if I can give everything at home, I don't need nothing.
Right.
Like, and the thing is that, and that's not just sexual, that's emotional. Cause like that's feed my metaphysical. Like if I can
Spiritual too.
right,
Yeah.
spiritual. So if I can sit at the end of the bed with no TV and just look you in your eyes and tell you, my day starts with you. Like I just want to do that. But that type of connection is built. You build that with those nights when you're just talking, when you're just at the table, when the children are in bed. Like the thing is that I always say people are so busy raising kids that they forget to grow each other up.
Amen.
You see what I mean? Like you gotta take time. If you're doing 2 weeks with the kids, take 2 extra days when you get home that when they go to school that you guys are just in the house. You can go to breakfast, you can go to lunch, or you can go to a park. And I always just say people forget to date each other. And the thing is that without getting off the topic, right? Your spouse is telling you what they need. My point is, I'll speak for me. If I feel like I'm not going to get what I need from you, but I still love you, I'm silent. Because for me, you've already shut me down. This is just a physical appearance of what you've done to me emotionally.
At that point, you're just roommates, basically.
I don't want a roommate that I've tried to build a life with. I don't need it. I'm cool.
There's a ministry called Family Life, and I'll put the link in the video for you guys. But Family Life is an awesome ministry, and it speaks on exactly what you were just talking about. So it talks about still dating. It's a marriage. It's a marriage ministry. They have these weekends called Weekends of Remembers, and you go there, and it's a Friday night to a Sunday morning, and you have a really good, speakers there. You don't have to, there's no group sessions. You just go and listen to the speakers, and then you have a date night, and there's a workbook, and you work for your spouse, and it's a great experience. So if you guys have ever gone to them, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, go. But they talk about like dating while you're still married with children. Like you have to prioritize your marriage over or sides next to your marriage with your children.
Mm-hmm.
And it's extremely important. Otherwise, when your children leave, you're going to look at each other and say, who are you?
Right.
Who are you?
Right.
You know, I haven't seen you in the past 5 years.
Right.
As you know, when the high school comes in, it's just like, time just flies. You got so many responsibilities for the children. I know, because I've got 2 high schoolers now, and one's about to go up to college, and it's just been a rat race. It's just auditions here and plays there, and because they're in theater and basketball games. My son does basketball, so it's basketball here, there, track, whatever. Right. Crazy busy life, and we're not. My wife and I are careful to not prioritize our marriage. Again, we're just in a season, or we're a very cold season in our marriage. So yeah,
I use the terminology checking in earlier because I feel like someone said you talked about growing apart, right? And I said I don't really believe that people grow apart. I believe what happens is one grows without the other, right? And there's a difference. So that I believe I share my growth with her, and she shares her with me. That's how you grow together.
right.
The idea is that if I just believe that when people keep like I always say, like when you keep friends outside of your relationship, right? You and I are good, but I would never want to pry in what the sanctity of your marriage is. You know what I mean? Like, especially someone who's not married have no right or no place. But people are so quick to tell people who are in good spaces or good relationships how they should live their life. I never understood that. Be like, did you just go through 3 men in 1 year and you tell them this woman how to be a wife? To me, it bothers me. I tell my friends, I'm like, listen, I don't know how to help you. I can listen, but I'm not in a place to really offer you because, you know, the Bible says, seek ye wise counsel. I'm not married.
Right.
I'm a widow. I'm not in a place, and not even if I was, I wouldn't be in a place to judge. I would be in a place to support. And I always say, like, I want my friends to feel supported. But I'm just saying, like, I watch other people give advice to other people. Now, I got friends of mine that are relationships are unique. I don't understand them. I don't. And I always tell them, I don't understand the way you two are, but you're happy, right?
Right.
Because their happiness is not for me, and nothing they do is going to affect what happens to me.
Right.
I always tell them that. I always say, like, you know, what do you do? Like, they're like, oh, we do this. I'm like, oh, okay. But I don't offer no advice, and I just stay supportive. I go to events.
You sound like a therapist.
No, no, no. I don't want that title. I don't want that title. Listen, I always say, pardon me, no disrespect to yours, but I would say therapists are the craziest people in the world because they have to see somebody from seeing somebody. Because they have. You go there to a therapist, and I count my own. I went to her when I thought situation that I come out of, I thought it was me, and I said, I must be doing something, and I'm unaware. And I learned more about myself. But she was even trying to tell me stuff during the thing, and I was like, I don't understand. And she's like, I know she just wanted to be like, knock. You know what I mean? So I know she had to take all of what I was giving her and give it to somebody else. I don't want that job.
Quick segue, because I think it's a very important subject that we need to talk about. Is therapy is vitally important.
Yes,
especially if you're really dealing with something that you just can't come out of. I think, especially in our culture, in our community, in American community, there is a stigma on therapy that you should not go. Those people are crazy, or if you go, then people will consider you to be crazy. You're not strong enough mentally to overcome your issues or your problems if you go to therapy. Like therapy is just a crutch for you to say or talk about however you want. But therapy is vitally important, and it can help a lot, especially in marriage, especially if you're not grounded in Christ. I don't understand how people go through marriage and they're not grounded in Christ, because it's so difficult.
Hold on, but you just heard it right there. Right, go through a marriage.
Right.
They're not in a marriage. They go through.
Okay, yeah. So, but therapy can help out with a lot of people with a lot of issues: anger, fear, frustration, depression. I mean, there's so many things that we don't talk about that are going on in our lives, where you can actually just confess that or confront that with the therapist. And I think therapists, they're very undervalued in the African American community. And I think our people need to go see them more.
Well, I think the thing is that I love us, but we got to stop renaming stuff, because diabetes is the sugar. Bipolar is the special, right? Then it's when someone's schizophrenic, he got the actives. Like, so
I've never heard these things. I know you're sugar.
Right. When he's got high blood pressure, he got the heart problem. When he's got kidneys, he on the machine. So it's like, then when he's got amputee, like he lost one. Like, I just think we rename stuff. Like, I had an uncle that when he came back from Vietnam, when he first came to this country, you wanted to serve. So he came back, he wanted to go to Vietnam. And he came back and he was peeing off the porch. And he could not really, because to him, he was POW, right? And somehow this guy got married. I have Asian cousins over there in Vietnam. I have Vietnamese cousins. I don't know how the hell you captive and making babies. Right. So she fell in love with him. And he came back. He was so used to being out in the jungle, because I guess urinal holes.
Yeah.
So they dig down in the hole. You go there with snakes down there and all sorts of stuff. So he would never sit down. He would stand up like to make number two. He would pee off the front porch. And I remember, like, he had to go get help. Like, they had to finally choke him in, because he was just like, would go on the side of the house and take a dump and wipe his stuff with leave. Like, it's so spun out. He talks about this story now, but it's funny out. But what my grandmother said, she said, he had Satan in him. He had mental health, but he said, Satan got a hold of him.
Right.
It could be a demonic spirit, okay. But they, for a very long time, didn't deal with that.
Right.
Because, he had the case of the Satans. So I'm just saying, like, we have to stop, like, trying to really replace professional diagnosis and the need for help. That's what I was trying to make a point. And there's some points in my life where I was uncertain of things, and I realized that my next generation is behind me, so they hang on a lot of my words. So I want to make sure that I'm giving. So I'll check with a brother in Christ to say. That's why I said ministry and men's is so important, because a lot of times why you find women leading the devotion and men stand in the background is because they just really don't have that. Like, women are, like, even in our church, like, there's a lot of women that have the women's group that The men's group stuff, I have to find out through like I have to depend on you. It's not really well advertised, and they don't mean it, but they want to celebrate the women in church, and I love that. But there's nothing like the men's group is not really known unless you're in the church and you're part of the guys, you know what I mean? And you get included. Like I did get included with the morning Bible studies, in the mornings when we had Bible study. Like those things I like, but you have to be a part of the group. Like when you coming in, it's not really unless you learn to be a part of the circle, which is very new for me because I'm kind of a standoff to the back kind of.
Well, I think a lot of that is the whole standoff thing, right? So men were not very social at first, right? It takes a lot for us to trust other men or trust a church, trust people there, for whatever reason. But, it could be a lot of fear too. We don't want to, step on anybody's toes or fear of rejection, like they're going to reject us. So we just stand back. Right. A lot of times wait. And I think that's the whole purpose of what we're doing here is trying to get men to be courageous enough to step out, to ask questions, to talk to people. My son, like I'm a very outgoing extrovert. Like we were on vacation and my son and I were throwing the ball in the pool together, right? So this guy, he's like, "Hey, me. Right. And so I threw him the ball and my son was like, stepped off. My son was like, "Oh." He didn't want no parts of that. Like he just like slowly moving. I was like, "Where you going, dude?" I said, "He just wants to play." So it was like, and so I think a lot of times men are fearful of other men. I don't know why that is, but we just are. And there's a really good way of just saying, "Hey, how you doing? How are you?" And being brave and stepping up and asking for help if you need it. I think that's where we were talking about just the programs in church. I think our church is really good with that. I think typically men don't know because they just don't know who to ask and they're fearful of asking them. Where women are just like, "Hey, how you doing? This is what you got to do. You go here." Men are just like, "Hey, how you doing?" That's it. No. Look, we're not like that. Not all of us, but a lot of times we're very standoffish because, we don't want to feel rejected. I think that's a lot of times. I think we have a lot of rejection a lot of times. Especially coming up as an adult from just relationships, jobs, kids, and we just fear rejection. We good.
I think though it can be some rejection, but I think also what it is some men feel like I'm in competition with you somehow, right? So
the alpha male thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you in my space, right? But there's enough room for all of us at the table. I don't need to be mean to you. And I'm standoffish more so out of trust. I know what I am and I know I'm a good person. I know that once I know you and my word is my word. Like if I tell you I'm coming somewhere on a Saturday, I'm coming.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's not a lot of people that do that. They talk that Hollywood talk, and that's what bothers me the most. "Oh my God, I just can't wait. I just effing love you. You're the best." And I think that word, love, is so interchangeable with like and you're cool that it troubles me. I have a hard time digesting when strangers tell me they love me. "I just love you. You're the best." Don't do that. Like, don't do it.
You better receive that.
No, I'm sorry.
No.
Because it's not really love because and my neighbors would say that, right? And I remember asking, like, my neighbors, "I just love you. We're a village." And I'm like, "We're a village because you think because we're over here like jumping on bushes like we're a village." And I'm like, "Okay, no, Charles. It's just," and I look at them like this and they're like, no, it's because you're part of the family. But then I ask you to get my kid from the corner and you tell me you're too busy. I don't get how that equates to love and I'm a part of your village. And so when I back off, but I always loved it was saying is like, people will hurt you and then only talk about the response that you had from their hurt rather than they did wrong. So I love the terminology, or I love the term in the Bible that says, "Be still and know that I'm the Lord thy God." And that's my thing. And sometimes when I stand off, I just stand. I'm like, "God, like you deal with it, I can." And I don't want to. We're not built to really take on every man's spirit or his emotional, like I can't like bear the weight of somebody. It's get to a point where I had people around me that were training Like, I just would give so much and give so much. And then when I turned around and looked for something in return, I got very little.
Yeah. And people probably say, man, stop giving,
Yeah.
right? Stop giving. But
No, but here's the thing. Stop giving to the wrong people.
Right.
Because that's why I said, like, right now I'm in a freeing space. It's just me and the limits, right? So I got time to really work on as much or as little of myself as I want. But right now I'm choosing to pour into them. And if something that I should be near, I'll be near. Otherwise, I love staying far away. I'm okay. You know, to me, standing on an island sometimes is not bad. You know, I know if no man is an island, I'm not an island. I'm standing on an island that God built, and I'm just protecting myself.
you know, sometimes we just need to be alone,
Right.
right? I mean,
Right.
we do, to process things,
Right.
to de-stress, to just regroup. I don't mind being alone sometimes. I know I got a lot going on. My life is crazy busy, and being alone sometimes is a really good thing. It helps me to process, you know, what's going on in my space or in my life. And so we're going to try to wrap this up. Thank you guys for being with us and listening to us. Hopefully we will be back really soon. We're going to try to put out one a week on different topics and subjects based on men's issue. This is typically what we're going to talk about: family, relationships, being a man, and what it feels like sometimes.
We're going to go past this. We're going to go past that dialogue.
Well, I love being a man. I do.
So do I, but we can't grunt for an hour. I don't.
We don't. I don't. I said I was Tim Van Taylor. That's like back in like the 90s. Bailey, we all right. All right, so come back and join us next week for another episode of
Mom, M.O.M.
What does that mean?
Moment of man.
See y'all next week. All right.